blacks include
the party line.
Point of view.
Right. Right you are.
And, Lynn thinks that she can cut the conservatives off at the pass by saying, they're going to say he had this all, Bill Clinton never intended to incur into Haiti. He had this all planned. Well, the fact is, I believe he did have this all planned. And that hater that I was talking about called Lynn Sunday evening, I believe, and complained about how Rudy Giuliani looks in his suits, and was extolling the great David Dinkins, according to him, and how well he was dressed.
Yeah.
David Dinkins had to dress well, because it's the only, he figured, well, if I look like a mayor, people will actually think I look like a mayor. But what he didn't say is that there's nothing in that suit. I'll take a Rudy Giuliani, even with the shortcomings that we've been complaining about, ahead of a racist, anti-American, cop-hating, criminal-loving, black criminal-loving
tax evading.
Yeah, very good.
And I wonder where he gets those handmade suits.
Yeah, probably from some cheap Asian store in the village or something where he gets a discount.
Slave labor.
Oh, beautiful.
They fall off those ships and right into dungeons where they make Dinkins' suit.
He has the first dollar he ever made, David Dinkins. What a cheapo.
First of all, he's got a city pension from mayor, then from borough president. Now he's got a deal. He's living in Lou Rudin, put him up in a 3-bedroom, 3-bath penthouse apartment. I think he gets it for free. If he's paying, I guarantee he's paying $4,000 beneath market. I think he has some other deals now. Is he with Revlon too? I think he's on some boards of directors. He's got directorships, but he relates to the poor.
Yeah,
he relates to the underprivileged.
Yeah.
He doesn't tell you about the boards that he sits on now. I want to ask you a question. Hey, Dave, when you immediately upon leaving the mayoralty, you got on all these boards of directors. When did you make those deals for yourself? After you left or while you were still mayor?
Maybe.
And what did you give in return for those directorships?
Maybe he's got a business on the side selling headboards. And, Bill Clinton, Lynn said last night, Bill Clinton just does things differently. Well, Hitler did things differently, too. Did that make it right? These liberals, they're totally bankrupt, Jay. They'll never just lay down and die, because if they ever admit that they've been wrong and everything, that means their entire lives are invalid, because this is all that they've lived for. They don't believe. Lynn Samuels, let's get something straight. Lynn Samuels does not believe in what is right and what is good. She just lives to be anti. That's her whole shtick. She said one time, I don't know why I believe what I believe. I just do. Here's a woman who has no beliefs. She just wants to be contra.
Maybe that's what she should do. We get her some dark glasses and she can be a contra. Hey, let me commend you, John, because you are a man of principle. There are other people who call up radio stations constantly blathering about anti-Semitism, and what do you know? They end up treating with anti-Semites. Not you, John. Yeah. Not you. Yeah. I mean, there's one individual who's obsessed with anti-Semitism, heard all over the place, and yet in her private life, she's busy with the most virulent anti-Semites, the most virulent anti-Semites around. I just don't get it. Yet on the radio, a different persona.
No, that's, come on now, that's not true.
But you are in a class by yourself. All right, thank you,
thanks
John.
a lot, Jay. I appreciate the compliment.
Bye now. On WABC, operator of tonight's debate, Ross Perot's brother, Walter.
Yeah, thank you, Sonny. Good evening, folks, and welcome to the great debate. I don't know how great it's going to be, being as how Al Sharpman withdrew his name from the race over the weekend. So I guess that just leaves you here, Mario.
Well, it sure looks that way, doesn't it? But you know something, Walter? I'm really not surprised. I always knew he'd try and find some way to worm out of facing me eye to eye. You know, mano a mano. I'd have torn him into little activist bits, that big fat oaf. That's why he's not here.
You figure it that way, do you? Yes. That's what you say now.
Absolutely. It's common knowledge that he's a scared of me. He's a scared, I tell you. He's a scared.
Afraid you might pander him to death, I suppose.
No, old-timer. Afraid I might embarrass him to death with my superior debating skills and world-class intellect. Al Sharpman is nothing but a windbag, plain and simple. But if I'm going to debate something, I'd rather it not be an empty chair. That's why I brought along this whoopee cushion to represent a flatulent windbag who, because of his monumental cowardice, would have, could have, and should have been here tonight. So let me just put our little friend... Oh, and I brought this old beetle wig. There. Looks just like him, doesn't it? Are you comfortable, fat boy? Go ahead, old-timer. Ask him a question. That's pretty good, mister. That's pretty good. At least he'll give you a straight answer. You don't like that Sharpman fella very much, do you? It's not him so much as his guts that I hate. You see, there's something you got to understand about Al Sharpman. He's an enigma, not like anyone else you've ever known.
I heard that. I heard what you said.
Heard what, Fats? What are you doing here anyway? I thought you chickened out.
I was just passing through and I heard some rather disparaging remarks tended in my direction over the radio. So I thought I'd just stop by and help set the record straight.
Well, don't stand on ceremony, Al. Here, have a seat.
There she blows.
So you were on your way home. From what? Out servicing the community?
The community? What do you mean by the community?
He services the community like a ram services, well, you understand.
Is that true, mister? Do you service the community?
You can laugh all you want now, but let's see how funny you think it is come November time.
Then what? You're gonna march? Come on, Al. You know darn well that ain't gonna happen. Not in November, anyway.
Why is that? Too close? Too close to the holidays, mister?
No, Grandpa. Too cold. For him, anyway, and all his marches. Besides, who needs him anyway?
You do. That's who. You do.
For what? Your good looks? Your charm?
Stop it, mister. Stop it. I'm about to bust a gut.
Not now, Pops. I'm on a roll. So what am I supposed to need you for? Ballast?
How about my endorsement? Maybe 12 to 18% of the vote, or what's left of it.
Endorsement? Did I hear you say endorsement?
That's what he said, mister. Straight as shooting. I heard it myself. He said endorsement.
Why don't you just can it, geezer? So, Reverend Sharpton, you mean to say you're willing to let all those years of friendship and dialoguing we've established between ourselves go down the drain over a few heated words spoken in jest? Couldn't you tell I was only jesting, merely speaking out of a sense of levity?
I don't believe in no levity. Anytime I gets up, it's by my own self-power. At my expense is what you were talking about.
And he was doing a good job of it, too.
I'm not going to tell you again, old man. Shut your face. Don't mind him, Al. He's from Texas. Come on. Let's you and me go up to the mansion, get a little bite to eat, have something to drink, a little champipple. I know you like that.
Well, now you walking into my kitchen, if you pardon the metaphor.
You see, Al, I didn't really mean all those things I said. Besides, most of it was taken out of, what's the word I'm looking for?
Contest?
Well, that's close enough. Context, contest. What's an S or an X amongst friends? That's it exactly. Now, don't we both feel better having cleared the air? We'll just go get a bite to eat, kiss and make up, and by tomorrow it'll be just like old times again. You'll see.
You can start by kissing this.
That? You want me to kiss that? Oh, well.
Mm-hmm. That's what I want.
Well, all right, why not? After all, we're not on TV.
On WABC.
The only thing he's serving is giving Lynn some ratings, and keeping her on the air. You know, she'd have her usual group that hardcore small constituency that listens to her. But I'm sure there's a bunch of people that listen hoping for John to come on, or hoping for Frank from Queens to come on, or hoping for Dorothy. You know, they listen for that, and Lynn knows that, obviously, and it enhances her ratings.
In my view, John from Staten Island is a considerable cut above those other personages that you've just recited.
Above Frank?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah?
In my book?
Okay.
No question about it.
Oh, I think he's top of the line. That's why
Well, I'm talking about the man's personal characteristics.
Okay.
I'm talking about, the courage of John from Staten Island.
Right.
The humor of John from Staten Island. You can't, those other people don't come near it, and I can tell you for a fact they don't come close to his integrity.
Okay.
I know that for a fact. All right, Bob, I appreciate the call.
Jay.
Yes, Bob. Yes, this is Jay Diamond. Hello? Yes, hello. Hello, Jay, can you hear me? No, that's how it goes sometimes. But let's take another one. Jay, Simpson's lawyers were in court today for the 4 millionth week of pretrial ale. And, for the 400th time in the last 4 months, Jay, Simpson's legal team, which is the equivalent of O'Melveny and Myers, which I think might be one of the largest law firms in the world, Warren Christopher's old law firm, and the law firm that worked for Bing Crosby. O'Melveny and Myers has maybe 1,500 lawyers, but O.J. Simpson has a little more than that, Jay. And, they asked today that evidence be thrown out. Isn't that unusual, Jay? I would say no, I don't think that's very unusual at all. All O.J. Simpson's team of 5 million lawyers ever do, Jim, is ask for evidence to be thrown out. And then the caller would say, well, Jay, isn't that very curious? Because if you have a client who maintains that he's innocent, then why would they want to throw out the evidence? And I would say, oh, well, Jim, I would tend to agree with you, since evidence, in my view, is what is evidence, really? What is evidence? It's the immediate circumstances of a crime or a crime scene. And if you are, in fact, not guilty of a crime, then, in my view, the immediate circumstances of the crime or the crime scene, whether this is physical evidence or otherwise, would tend to exculpate you, since you have nothing to do with it, right? Let's not use the word evidence, because it's a funny thing about linguistics and semantics. If you repeat the same word 5,000 billion times, it loses. If you say a word long enough, you don't remember what it means. It just becomes a mantra. So similarly, people get flustered, they get confused when they hear the word evidence bandied around 7,000 million billion trillion times. So let's not talk about evidence. Let's try to really figure out what evidence is. And I'm repeating, what is evidence but the immediate circumstances of a crime or a given crime scene, physical circumstances or otherwise. That is what they mean. If you are, in fact, not culpable, if you have nothing to do with the crime, then all the circumstances, the immediate circumstances of a given crime or crime scene, physical or otherwise, would tend to show that you had nothing to do with it, right? So why would you go into court, in theory, to prove you're innocent and say, I want the jury to be able to see the immediate circumstances of the crime or crime scene, physical or otherwise. I want to hide this from the jury. Well, I'd scratch my head and say, well, that's very peculiar. Inasmuch as you claim you have nothing to do with the crime, wouldn't the immediate circumstances, physical or otherwise, of the given crime or crime scene tend to show that you had nothing to do with it? Well, the only trouble is I did have something to do with it, but I want to make you prove it, and I don't want to give you the devices to prove it with. I don't want to give you the ammunition. After all, the law says you've got to prove that I did it. I don't have to prove that I didn't do it. And how can you prove I did it if I make it impossible for you to get a hold of the clues, the evidence, the immediate circumstances, physical or otherwise, of the given crime or crime scene? I don't want you to have that, because if you do get a hold of that, then I'm bagged. Oh, I see. That low life. Can I say the word that means human excrement that begins with a T and ends with a D? Can I say that on the air? That third individual, O.J. Simpson, who is a true third, because I'm not sure if I can say the other word, that inhuman third who sits there, who orphaned his own children, if there's a God in heaven, I beg you to make this man feel pain from now into eternity. I want that guy to shovel a lot of coal. I really do. I want him to burn in hell from now till the end of the universe. He orphans his own kids and then tries to eel out of it by hiring 400 greasy, oily, sneaky lawyers like Johnny Cochran and Oily Shapiro. And how many others? They have so many lawyers there, I can't remember the... Barry Schreck. Barry Schreck, who's on... I remember what he's getting paid to leave his classes, to abandon his students at NYU. These are a bunch of greaseballs, every damn one of them. I would put the lawyers on trial, and let me tell you what those lawyers are doing. In helping this individual who murdered his own wife and who orphaned his own children, not to mention butchering Goldman as well, but he butchered his own children psychically. In helping him try to get away with it, they are killing their own children and orphaning them too. Because if you help one child murderer, then you help them all. But they don't care, because they don't respond to ethics, they don't respond to justice, they respond only to Moloch. M-O-L-O-C-H. Moloch. Money, money, money. That's what they respond to. On WABC presents the Mighty Diamond Art Players. And by the way, have you noticed how pretentious they're getting? They're doing the classics now. You should see them in the green room. Costumes. It looks like the Ride of the Valkyries in there. And they have a company director. He looks a little like Franklin Pangborn. Is there anybody in the audience who remembers Franklin Pangborn? He was always a very, shall we say, fastidious, if you know what I mean, individual in the old pictures. So they're there now. They're working there. They're putting the flats in place. They're doing their last-minute warm-ups, a lot of deep knee bends and squat thrusts and splits. They're ready to perform. Ladies and gentlemen, the Ransahoff organization, in association with Saul Nurak, present the Mighty Diamond Art Players in Moby Drek.
Call me Svachimeel. Some years ago, never mind how many, not that it's anybody's business, with little or no money in my purse, I wasn't married yet, and having nothing in particular to interest me on shore, I thought I would sail about a little and see the watery part of the world. It is a way I have of driving off the old spleen and regulating the circulation in lieu of my rapidly advancing years. Y-E-A-H-Z, years. Strange that a person who has the vocal affectation of a Hudson County Protestant like Roosevelt, I say again, I also say years. But I'm eclectic. Whenever I find myself growing grim about the mouth, whenever it is a damp, drizzly November in my soul, whenever I find myself paused before the homeless advocates at Penn Station in search of bench devoid of residents, and especially whenever my hypos get such an upper hand of me that it requires a strong moral principle to prevent my telling them to go get jobs. Now, when I say that, I fancy the thought of going off to sea. I do not mean to infer that I go as a passenger, for as a passenger, you must needs to have a purse. Therefore, I trod myself to the shores of Nantucket, where I had the good fortune to sign on as crew aboard the good ship Paraquat. And in the sultry haze of twilight, I stood at dockside and anxiously awaited to meet the Paraquat's master and leader of men, the stalwart and multicultural Captain Rehab. Pardon me, cabin boy. I seek to make the acquaintance of the good Captain Rehab.
You must be the new guy. Yes or no?
Yes.
I don't know if thou will be able to at present. I know not what troubles him this night, but he keeps low in his cabin. He won't even see me. But he's a queer man. Not my words. You can take that up with Herman Melville. He's a grand and godly man. He's been a Muslim, a Quaker, a Druid, a Baptist, a pawn and a king. Excuse me, every now and then I feel the need for some levity. It breaks the tension. Did you like my little joke? Did you like it? Anyway, be forewarned. Rehab's no common man. He's been to college. He graduated the William Patterson College in Wayne, New Jersey, with a degree in aquatic racism and self-esteem.
The cabin boy went on to explain that during his course of studies while off the coast, the young Rehab hooked his line into that most hated of all undersea creatures, that most despised of all undersea beings, the great white Jewfish. The resulting entanglement of lines did jar the vessel and toss the young Rehab to the briny water, whereby the portly young lad was, by mistake, sexually harassed by an amorous, albeit confused, killer whale, resulting, alas, in the loss of the young man's leg, third leg. Thenceforth, he ever swore to apply his remaining days in quest of the good riddance of his foe, the great white Jewfish. We'd been at sea in week, say 6, and had seen not hide nor hair of the elusive captain, save for the comings and goings of his stately cabin. The cabin boy would enter bearing great amounts of what Cook called spare ribs, and exit shortly carting only platters piled high with animal bones bereft of flesh. The sea... The seas were roughing that cold and bitter morn, and foreboding shivers ran over me. A voice from up the crow's nest did then report, "Ahoy, me neckers! 'Tis but many a draggle off the port bow." The crew, without order, took their stations as the door to Rehab's quarters swung open suddenly. I leveled my glance toward the aft rail as Captain Rehab took the deck for the first time. A trail of bones and gizzards following him, falling out of his empty pants leg.
Today's the day, me hearties. The dreidel floats the waters, and there's mitzvah in the air. Lackey, fetch my bullhorn.
There seemed no common look about this man. This man who appeared to have never missed a meal. I should know. His whole high, broad form seemed made of solid brass. His shoulder-length mane did waft in the strong headwind and frolicked about the collar of his green and blue jogging suit. And around his ample neck, below the double chin, hung a great, huge medallion made of gold electroplate. His fixed gaze, a stare much like when your mother tells you to clean your room, and you pretend you didn't hear her.
To your stations, men. Hoist the mainsail and don't diss the missing mast. Make way, you scurvy dogs. There'll be no dialoguing today.
And like a sullied maiden in wait for birth of child, the tension on deck mounted in expectation of some blessed event. For soon there followed tremendous roar, as before our eyes the water did break, and the dreidels did disperse.
It is the Jew!
And in seconds' time did lumber above the water's surface the great hulking mass, fully emerged as large as any whale, atop its head resting what appeared to be a yarmulke of enormous dimension.
I smite thee, Jewfish. With all my soul I spit my hate and spend my last breath on thee, O cursed fish.
And as the captain absorbed his short attention span towards his hapless prey, there advanced off the horizon a vessel at quick and rapid pace. On deck stood what appeared a shriveled gnome, standing beside a man of uniform.
Attention, men. Stow all gear. Belay my last commands. Quick, hide those, clean up the poop deck, pop away those playboys, and attention all deck. We got visitors.
And visitors they were, and no ordinary guests were these two, for on deck there would soon be standing a chronicler of the times, a scribe and benchmark for what contemporary 20th century inhabitants would euphemistically call a journalist. Yes, it was the incredible shrinking man, Gabe, and his doorman, Harry.
Well, look what the tide brought in. Hello, Gabe. How the women treating you? Hey, you just in time for the next prayer meeting. Yeah, we're just out here, spreading the word, communing with nature, getting closer to God. Say, I sure do feel better since I learned how to get in touch with myself. You were right about toning down my rhetoric, Gabe. It sure has modified my behavior.
But alas, there was to be no catch that day, or any other. It seems, shortly before his visit ended, a member of the Little Gnome's crew appeared on deck with a new contraption, something the likes of which I had never seen. They called it a camera. And Captain Rehab, in a half-crazed charge to position himself before it, lost his footing.
Oh! Oh, man, overboard!
And was never heard from again. But there is, at least as far as my superior intellect can tell, a great lesson to be learned by the late captain's demise. And as soon as I can think one up, I'll tell you. Oh, yeah, if you should ever find yourself over your head and without a leg to stand on, you better have a good pair of deck shoes. Oh, and never count your endorsements before they're bought, sold, granted. And if you should ever find yourself over a large body of water and Ted Kennedy shows up wearing a captain's hat, it's every man for himself. On W.
Soak your head in water. I don't want to talk to you because you are less than nothing. You lying.
Put Hilly down there. Let John talk. Hey, get rid of those names. All right, John.
That's a snappy comeback.
Yeah.
He really addressed specific points with that remark. All of a sudden, the Hilly who knows everybody and knows everything never heard about the Glenwood housing.
Yeah, did you hear him say, I condemn wrongdoers of all, no matter what color?
Yeah, like Al Sharpton, who conducted a fraudulent, phony rape for a year. And Larry Davis, who was a known drug dealer and killed other drug dealers.
Hey, what about those people in Ridgewood who killed Matusewicz, the 43-year-old Con Edison worker, and Matthew Bleck, a 23-year-old college graduate, here for the summer, walking his girlfriend home? What about those were thugs who said they had to do those killings because they needed money to celebrate the 4th of July, the great nation that they love so much, yeah.
And he's still trying to make a martyr out of Michael Stewart. Michael Stewart was a lifelong criminal who had a record of graffiti and troublemaking.
Let's bring him back and ask him to apologize for Matthew Bleck. Hello, Hilly, bring him back now. Are you there?
I'm sure, yeah.
All right. Now,
You're saying that Michael Stewart was
No, we're not talking about Michael Stewart. We're talking...
No, but why did
you said that you would condemn all criminals, black and white. I'm waiting for you to condemn one black criminal.
Well, let me hear you condemn a Jewish criminal.
This is unbelievable.
Yeah, let me hear you condemn a Jewish criminal.
You know, this is a little peasant-minded...
Talk about, you know,
he's
how
such a creep.
Let me deal.
All right, I condemn Sammy Davis.
You condemn... For
yeah.
What did he do?
A Jewish criminal.
Besides,
he married a non-Jew.
He did? Oh, no, it's very good. That's funny. Oh, that's funny. Ha, ha. And you know...
You're lying. Hey, you know something? Let's make him feel at home, John.
Yeah,
Oh, okay, Hilly. Everything you say is, great. Oh, you're such a genius. Oh, wow. Oh, Hilly, you're so great. Oh, call again.
Yeah.
Oh, you're so smart. All right.
Hey,
oh, you know everything. You're so hip. You're so cool. Oh, you're so chic. Oh, what a hippie. Oh, he's so great. Oh, Hilly, that was great.
Jay, if you don't think I'm great, ask Frank what I did to him when we debated. John... first of all, that was 15 years ago on WMCA, and Frank beat the hell out of you. You're a liar. Just like he would now.
No, wait a minute. With respect to...
I'll tell you what.
You know what?
The moderator, the moderator was Felipe Luciano. I never raced him. I'll debate you publicly, anywhere.
You will not debate anybody.
You've already been made a fool of a number of times. What's the matter? You want to come back for another beating? Hey, why did you lie, John? Why don't you talk to Herman Badillo about Eric Adams' anti-Semitism? Eric Adams is an anti-Semite? Yeah. What did he say? Adams is an anti-Semite? Didn't he criticize him for marrying a Jewish woman? No, he didn't. No, he didn't. No, he did not. What, have you been hibernating for 10 years? Well, tell me what his quote was.
Forget it. John.
What was his quote, John?
John, it's hopeless.
On the weekend of December 11th and 12th, 1993, there were 5 attacks of
John, he's
Jews.
not going to. He will never listen. In fact, if you and I are talking to him and we're winning the argument, he'll have us written up as a bias crime.
I'll have you written up?
Yeah. All right.
I deal with people.
Hilly, you know something? You're a liar. You said you would condemn.
I'm a liar, Jay.
Yeah, you are a liar.
So are you.
You are a liar because...
You a liar.
I tell the truth. I get it. All right, John, thank you very much.
I love the other stall tactics.
He's so full of baloney. You know, he says, I'll condemn criminals white and black. And then you confront him with Glenwood, you confront him with Matthew Bleck's murder, John Matusowicz's murder, and, you know, you get nothing, no satisfaction from the man because he's a real empty suit.
Well, you got him good before when you clarified what happened in Howard Beach. No one murdered anyone. Michael Griffith was so hopped up on drugs that he ran across the highway, which is the most stupid thing you can do.
And there were weapons found on those people, although our friend Mr. Saunders refuses to recognize a knife as a weapon. He should have told that to Nicole Simpson.
Yeah, well, he's got to deny these things because he knows his arguments are so bankrupt, so he has to make up lies.
You know, we should dress him up. We should, you know what would be real justice for him? We dress him up like an old Jewish lady in the Glenwood houses. We make him up and dress him up, and we let him loose in there in the project and see how long he lasts. He'll be like Peter Graves in Stalag 17. Remember when they throw him out? And he starts talking in German, but they shoot him anyway. Wait a minute, you damn fool! I'm not an old Jewish lady. Get off of me!
He probably loved Miles Davis also, Jay. He thinks he was a big hero in he's in the music.
Another
business.
fast man with the blade.
Yeah, well, he's the guy who said if he had an hour left to live, he'd like to spend it strangling a white man.
On that note, I think we'll take a break.
Thank you.
Bye. On WABC.
That little quip there said 1,000 words. It was really good. You know, Jay, the lies, the distortions, the insanity about everything. The 1980s, Ronald Reagan, George Bush, Dan Quayle on Lynn's Show is more blatant every night. And every night, it evolves into the personal attack instead of addressing specific issues. And, of course, you're amongst those who are personally attacked with, vicious names. But they can't attack your views because you're too erudite. And one caller that we know and hate said, what have conservatives and Republicans done to help the working man? He always says this nonsense. Look how many trillions of dollars have been thrown down the drain through waste and corruption, thanks to Democratic, liberal, brainstorm, giveaway, feel-good programs. Programs where people have to depend on government instead of helping to support themselves, which are the type of programs that Republicans usually espouse to. How much did liberal Democrat Jimmy Carter's policy cost each and every citizen in this country with 18% inflation and 22% interest rates? And when Ronald Reagan's policy lowered inflation and interest rates to single digits and the lowest unemployment rates in 14 years, it helped poor people more than the $5 trillion that was wasted on social programs since 1967. And all the programs that liberals have espoused to, and all the programs that conservatives have supported, the liberal programs have resulted in an absolute disaster or waste. And all the programs, for instance, the space program, have helped everyone, including poor people, socially, economically, scientifically, and in medicine. And, Jay, Lynn keeps screeching with such emotional, wishful assurance that O.J. Simpson is absolutely 100% innocent because she wants it to be that way. She, being a hater of America and a self-hating white, wants a defeat for law and order and justice, and wants a black man who she knows is supported by a lot of blacks who also are anarchists, found innocent. And the more evidence she points to, or the more evidence that points to O.J. as the killer, the more she insists he's innocent in her make-believe world. And she hates Marcia Clark, because Marcia Clark is like a pit bull, you see, who isn't intimidated by a gang of big-name lawyers, is just as tenacious and determined as they are, and isn't backing down. And I've never seen any white defendant get as much big-name lawyers to defend him as O.J. Simpson has. Some racist country.
You know, take a look at the New York Times today on page 812. I wish it were television. I could show you the schematic drawing of the inside of his Ford Bronco and the locations of the various bloodstains. There's, let me just count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. There's 14 individual blood stains in that car, John. Tell me, you have a car, right?
Of course.
You own a car?
Yep.
If you went into your car right now, would there be 14 blood stains in there?
Of course not.
Including a big footprint full of blood? Right, would there?
Yeah, I guess he didn't have time to clean them up.
Yeah, now wait. Perhaps the most incriminating item involves bloodstains found near the crime scene. I'm reading from Kenneth B. Noble's account in today's New York Times. That is Monday, September 26th. He goes on to list the bloodstains. These include bloody footprints leading away from the bodies of the two victims. DNA tests are reported to have determined that blood spots next to them are likely to be from Mr. Simpson, who was cut on the hand or forearm. Now wait, then it gets better. Also, if news reports this week about bloody socks are to be believed, prosecutors may also have found evidence in Mr. Simpson's home that links him to the crime scene. Marcia Clark, the lead prosecutor, has denied that socks retrieved from Mr. Simpson's basement had been sent to a Maryland laboratory, she means Cellmark, for DNA analysis, and test results pointed to Nicole Simpson as the source of the blood. But several news organizations, including TV stations KNBC in LA and CNN, contend that the bloody sock report is essentially true. So here he has socks in his home with her blood on it. His car has 14 separate and distinct blood stains in it, including 2 on the door, and people tell us that he's 100% innocent. Yeah, he's 100% innocent, the way you get 2,000 people in a room all repeating that 2 and 2 is 7.5, and a lot of those people, after 7 hours of repeating that mantra, will actually try to persuade you that 2 and 2 is 7.5. And the individual who, for some idiotic reason, is on the radio before me, also is a master at prevarication and fairy tale dissemination. Plain and simple, Lynn just doesn't care a hang about the truth. Her program is essentially an amalgam of ignorance and prejudice.
Right, her agenda comes first, and it doesn't make any difference how much evidence is brought forth to show that this guy is guilty. They will always say they're innocent, because that means to deny their agenda means that their whole life is a denial. And Jay, just quickly to end this, one caller said the only reason they're paying attention to this trial is because a white person was murdered. Black people in this country. Rodney King just caused 2 days or 3 days of riot.
All right, I have to interrupt you, John.
Okay.
Listen, stay tuned, because one of the most prescient, one of the most innovative, and one of the most brilliant men commenting on issues today is going to be on my program right after we come back from the 11 o'clock news. I'm talking about Emmanuel McLittle, the editor and publisher of Destiny magazine. And if you read the article today in the New York Post by Michael Myers, you will see that there is a cadre of ultra-left-wing activists who use racial polarization as their means to assert their socialist agenda on the United States.
That's all I have left. Thanks, Jay.
Thank you, John.
He wants a little territory? Give him a little oil. Give him a little territory.
Hey, I didn't make that up. That's what the jerk really said. That's what Mario Cuomo said. Now, if George Pataki, never mind a backbone, I gave up on that. If he had a brain, George Pataki would put on the radio every day, quote, Mario Cuomo.
Saddam Hussein wants a little oil, so we'll give him a little oil. He wants a little territory, so we'll give him a little territory. What's that? Al Sharpton wants a little territory, we'll give him a little territory. Al Sharpton wants a few $1 million to throw around, we'll give him a few $1 million to make an investigation of Tawana Brawley.
Capitulation, weakness, spinelessness. Oliver North. There's one thing, ladies and gentlemen, you never accuse Oliver North of: cowardice.
We have to share the plague with them.
Yeah.
And we have to share starvation and plague and illness. In fact, if they have an earthquake in India, I will make an earthquake here so we can empathize with our Indian brothers.
Yeah. We all have to share the pain.
Right.
Okay,
That's the mentality of the weakling. Sharpton, Al Sharpman, meets the Music Man.
So, Al, now that you're going out of the, you should pardon the expression, race, what are you going to do with yourself? You have a lot of time on your hands. Aren't you going to get bored? What will you do with yourself?
Oh, I don't know. I thought maybe I'd hang around with you today and get my picture took standing next to Bill and Hillary.
Not with me, you ain't. Look, Al, you're on your own. So, if you'll excuse me, I gotta go across the street before the stores close. I'm sending a candygram to Herb London and a Pataki bear to Rudy. See ya.
What's that? You sending a Pataki bear?
Sure, don't you listen to WABC?
Now what am I going to do? Nobody wants anything to do with me. The new Alliance Party don't want me. The new and improved Alliance Party don't want me. Even the close cover before striking party don't want me. I'm in trouble, man, and I sure could use a miracle now.
Pardon me, friend. Did I hear you say you were in trouble?
Nobody knows the trouble I've seen. Why, trouble's my middle name.
I don't doubt that, friend. Not for one moment, just by the sight of you. Allow me to introduce myself, friend. The name's Professor Harold T. Hill. The T's for trouble. And believe you me, I can spot trouble a mile away. Which brings me to you, my friend. I'm president and senior sales executive of the Great Eastern and Southwest Religious Icon and Holy Relic Salvage Company Incorporated of Gary, Indiana. At your service, my card.
What can you do for me?
I'm glad you asked that, friend. You see, the key to any good salesman is not just his ability to see, but a powerful sense of hearing that puts him over the top every time. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I could have sworn I heard you say you needed a miracle, friend. Well, sir, all I needed was to take one look at you to know that no four-leaf clover or lucky rabbit's foot for you, sir. No, sir. I took one look at you, friend, and I said to myself, I says, what this man needs is a medallion necklace. That's right, a medallion necklace.
A medallion necklace? Won't I look kind of stupid walking around wearing a medallion around my neck?
That's a fair question, friend, but let me ask you this. Wouldn't a man look a whole lot stupider walking around with a horseshoe around his neck?
Yeah, I guess so.
That's right, friend, because nothing gives a man an air of respect and authority than a medallion around his neck. And, friend, tain't nothing more impressive to the common folks and the garbone masses than a genuine, antique, solid gold, electro-plated, self-winding, glow-in-the-dark, smiling Jesus around the neck keychain medallion, guaranteed to win you friends and influence people. You see, friend, this is no ordinary holy relic.
No?
Oh, no. Why, this rare antiquity hails from the ancient valleys of the River Nile, my friend, where it once adorned what members of Polite Company might prefer to call the sleeping chambers of Cleopatra herself.
Did you say Cleopatra?
A gift from a young Roman swain, name of Mark Antony, friend, who gave it to her during a boat ride down the Nile.
What's all this funny writing on it mean?
Why, those are the words of the winged beauty Nike, my friend. I'm sure you've heard of her.
Sure I have. She's the one who makes all the sneakers up.
Well, I can tell, friend, that I'm not dealing with just any fool. No, sir. I can tell by the cut of your jib that you're a man of rare intellect indeed. And if you know your ancient history as well as I think you do, then you must remember how Mark Antony regarded this medallion as a sign of great luck and tremendous fortune.
Oh, yeah, sure. I remember that.
But I'll bet you didn't know how he came to find it as a potent source of plenty, do you, friend?
It sort of escapes my mind at the moment.
Well, you see, friend, when Mark Antony was a younger man, he took a strong liking to the ponies. Every Sunday afternoon, right after church, Mark could be found hanging around the Roman circus, dropping money on the chariot races like a drunken sailor, you see. In the parlance of the homestretch mob, Mark Antony was a donator, friend, and if losing money were a virtue, old Mark could have got himself elected pope. But one day he hit it big, a 99-to-1 shot on a rider named Ben-Hur. You see, friend, what you're holding in your hand isn't just a medallion, but the only remaining hubcap of Ben-Hur's chariot, and no better sign of good fortune, I'll promise you that, not for love or money. How much? How much? How much? Well, friend, this breaks my heart. I'd hate to part with it, and I did, after all, promise my poor sick mother back in Gary I'd leave it at her bedside in the hospital in intensive care and an iron lung, if you know what I mean, but I might be persuaded for a price.
How much? How much you want for that? I'm gonna march if you don't tell me how. I said how much?
$99.95, friend, cheap at twice the price.
I'll take it. Here's $100. Keep the change and don't bother to wrap it up. I'll wear it home. Wow, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Gotta go. Bye.
And the perfect match, too, friend. The prize that comes along once in a lifetime and the sucker born every minute. The Mighty Diamond Art Players on WABC.
Jay, your opening remarks were magnificent as usual, and I told you they should be available on cassette tape, and you should be a millionaire by now. You know, Jay, last night I called Curtis after your show, and after giving him a jab in the ribs, he said, well, John, we've heard your broken record about third worlders and blacks, being responsible for almost all the world's problems. Well, Jay, in his attempt to be sarcastic, it's the first true statement he's ever made, even if he was just quoting me. And the fact is, from reborn diseases to graffiti to drugs to dependence on the Western world to constantly save them from themselves, the third world is the cause of most of the world's problems. England and France are having many of the same problems as the United States because they've opened up their doors, the silly fools, to third worlders. And the French, as much as I despise them, are starting to kick them out and aren't worried about being called racist. You know, Jay, the reason we don't have the nerve to stop aircraft from coming in to the United States from India is because we're afraid of that poem on the Statue of Liberty and the R word. You know, the third world and the liberals and Democrats, misfits who support them, are determined to tear down our society if they can't or won't fit in. And that caller from India couldn't answer your question about whether aircraft from India should be banned from landing here because, like most of the new immigrants, as we've been saying all along, have their heart and allegiance with the country that they escaped to and not with America, like you said. And then Americans who are against these new immigrants, we've been called racist. Let's say it again, Jay. The new immigrants are not as patriotic or patriotic at all as the old immigrants. Vicious, racist Carl. Black facilities. I wonder what he's going to say now that his deprived brothers destroyed that brand new soccer field that was built with funds donated from the Red Hook Housing Project by Norwegians and lasted only 10 days. Why didn't the community that always seems to have enough money to threaten everyone with economic boycotts, how come they didn't provide facilities for their own? And HIlly said to Curtis, get a load of this, Jay, the difference between John and I is I don't lie. Yeah, neither does Bill Clinton. And, you know, he had the nerve to say no one was beaten and had their equipment destroyed after the Bensonhurst trial. Now, Jay, Bob Grant spoke about this the next day, and you know Carol Zimmer, who was there and was beaten. You know her personally. And she came back and spoke to Bob on the phone and told about the violence that took place there. And Jay, HIlly, he keeps ridiculing me, you've heard this, for living on Staten Island. Now, Desmond Robinson, who's been supporting fanatically, he says he's been supporting Desmond Robinson fanatically, as you know. Desmond Robinson lives on Staten Island. I guess Desmond Robinson doesn't know black people since he's so insulated out here on Staten Island. And Desmond Robinson really shouldn't be commenting on anything concerning blacks.
Well, look, you know, he says those things just to get your goat. I wouldn't give him the satisfaction.
Did you see that survey comparing Democrats to Republicans that came out?
No.
For a period of 22 years, from 1972 to 73?
What is...
The Democrats are uglier and more stupid than Republicans on average.
Oh, come on. Uglier?
That's what it says. Democrats are less affluent, more unhappy, more prone to antisocial and self-destructive behavior than self-described Republicans. Democrats have nasty habits more than Republicans. Democrats are more likely to be shot, robbed, and burglarized, yet it's Democrats who, up until recently...
That's because the Democrats are the victims of crime.
Yeah. And they die younger, even though Republicans are a full year older.
That's what's called Democrat on Democrat crime.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, you should hear the rest of them.
Well, send it to me.
Yeah,
Maybe
I will.
you'll fax it in. I'll read some off. All right, got to run.
You're misfits.
Good night.
Thanks.
Thanks. All right, Nat. On WABC. Hello, John.
Hi, Jay. Jay, your opening remarks were not only riveting as usual, but tonight they were also frightening, unfortunately. And if these racist anarchist thugs ever take over, I hope the first white person they come after is that guilt-ridden, self-hating Kenny that's been calling the last couple of nights talking about how oppressed blacks are in America. America is being run by blacks. Just take a look around you. Then they can go after that other communist, Noam Chomsky. And Jay, now that Ben Chavis, speaking of him, is being sued by his fellow blacks, and it's in all likelihood an embarrassment for other blacks, who hate the fact that he's being sued, are they going to call the NAACP Uncle Toms, or are they going to blame the lawsuit on a third hand? Like maybe the Jewish lawyers and other whites who they'll say encouraged the brothers to sue. They were the instigators. The brothers in the NAACP really didn't want to sue. They were pushed into it.
Ben Chavis tonight, he can't listen to us. He's at a fundraiser for the Gangster Disciple Nation. Yes, they need more money for their political action committee, and they're siphoning too much off from their $300 million a year drug profit to go to the political action committee, so they're trying to raise some outside funds. I think Bill Clinton and Ben Chavis are going to be addressing the throng.
Yeah, that's quite a dilemma for those racists who love the racist NAACP. You know, Jay, it's no wonder that a group like this in Chicago can get this far. I heard Bob Dole on another station this afternoon, and he said that a recent survey showed that 40% of Americans don't even know that the Democrats control both houses. It's no wonder Democrats have been so successful in making so many people believe that Republicans are at fault for everything. And one other thing, Jay, before I go, as you know, there was a 16-year-old shot in a housing project today who had a toy gun. He was shot by a black police officer. Now, Officer Desmond Robinson was shot by a white Hispanic in the subway, and certain callers called that racist. I wonder what they're going to call this now that that black police officer obviously came under the same conditions as that poor white officer. Are they going to say that, they can't say, rather, that the young boy, he just saw a black young boy with a gun, and therefore they assumed that he was a criminal. Where's the demonstrations against this black police officer?
Why, what about those parents who foolishly allow their children in such an environment to run around with guns? They live in a cistern of guns, in a cauldron of murder, and yet they're content to twiddle their thumbs or to occupy their time watching television while their children are running around bullet-strewn hallways, aspiring to be the next shooters of real guns.
Yeah, well, you know,
I mean, it's unbelievable. If you lived there, first of all, nobody with half a brain would live in so-called public housing in New York, particularly with a child. I would rather live on the street. The only reason they're in public housing is because they want to get something for nothing, and they're getting exactly what they deserve.
Yeah, well,
but the fact of the matter is, I don't blame that cop one bit.
I don't either, and you know what they're going to say? Hey, it's whites brought those toy guns into the neighborhood.
You know something? You're performing good satire, but it is a disgrace that so many people are brainwashed into that mentality that you satirize.
Oh, yeah.
And instead of hating you for pointing out the truth to them, they should be thanking you and changing their lives.
And talking about hating, Jay, it's been you and maybe one of the talk show hosts and a few callers who have had the guts to point out what we're up against in this country, like you were talking about tonight, and we were called all kinds of names. Eventually, Jay, just as we've been saying all along, everything that we conservatives and people on the right speak about eventually fan out, don't they?
Yeah, and don't be fooled by tax cut conservatives. You know, these economic oh, yes, enterprise zones and tax cuts. Tax cuts aren't going to do anything about the gangster disciple nation. Only muscle will.
No, it'll just put more money into their hands so they can fight against America more.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Andy, this is...
Anybody in the third world might get the idea that they're not welcome to come here and sponge off welfare, get benefits, go on Social Security, disability, and we would be accused of not rolling out the red carpet to our third world friends and brothers and neighbors. We have a responsibility to the third world because we are the first world. And if we aspire to the title of first world, then we have to reach down again and again and again to try to pull our little friends in the third world up to the first level. And we should bring them all here. And if the price to pay is a few sniffles and maybe a cough and a little mucus, well, it's nothing I haven't heard on your show when people clear their throats.
Yeah, but I mean, doesn't it represent a grave public health threat to bring in carriers of pneumonic plague?
We're living in a world where you can't insulate yourself from the population at large, and then you'd be saying, what's the matter? Their germs? You can't tell a person that his germs aren't as good as your germs. How do you know that maybe we harbor germs here in the United States to which our little Indian friends haven't developed immunity yet? Now, that wouldn't be correct. There's viruses, there's all strains of diseases here. The common cold that you might have an immunity to because you live in the United States might be a foreign germ to an Indian. You get off a plane in India, and he falls victim to a cold virus that you are immune to. Now, that wouldn't be fair. Are your germs any more benign than his germs? And who's to say that your germs are more malignant than his germs? Is one germ better than another in the broad view, in the philosophical view? I mean, as Teilhard Chardin wrote, one man's passion is another man's poison. You have to look at germs in the spiritual sense. Germs are organisms, too. Germs are living, too. Do you realize that a bacteria eats, sleeps, breathes, multiplies, just like you, just like your mother did, just like your father did? Do you realize, essentially, Jay, that germs have feelings, too? What if germs can hear what you're saying about them? Would that be right? How would you feel if you were a germ? The fact of the matter is, germs are no different here and in India. Germs are germs, and all germs can work together in the spirit of goodwill for the betterment of mankind. And besides, if a few million Americans have to die to make our Indian brothers not panic, so be it. We've taken so much from India over the years, it's about time we gave them back something. And what more can we give to them than our very lives? That is, your life.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Governor. Jeff, this is Jay Diamond. Thanks for today. It's all about... John.
Hi, Jay.
Hi.
Jay, you know, the boys that your first thug of a caller said he was sticking up for are out in the streets all over this country murdering each other and wouldn't hesitate to knock him off the moment they think he didn't march in lockstep. And then he'd have to seek refuge in some nice white person's house. And Jay, I heard a certain caller on the previous show say that the riot started in Crown Heights because the police roughed up Gavin Cato's father. They were so concerned with Gavin Cato that instead of helping Joseph Licht, who was trying to help Gavin Cato, the thugs who came along beat up Joseph Licht and stole his wallet and ran away bravely and quickly forgot Gavin Cato. You know, if they weren't concerned about Gavin Cato, who was lying under the car dying, are we supposed to believe they were concerned about Gavin Cato's father, who was pushed around a little? And, you know, they just used this incident to do what they do best, destroy, rob, and get something for nothing. And Joseph Licht had to leave this country because of death before and after his hearing, which exonerated him, by the way. Isn't it blacks, Jay, who always say that whites always prejudge blacks? And nothing could possibly justify 3.5 days of looting, destruction, thievery, beatings, and murder. But I can see why HIlly would once again excuse the Blad guys.
I'll tell you something. I don't want to make that nobody more important than he is.
Yeah.
And, you know, I love to get your calls, but mentioning his name is just really repulsive to me, John. It really is. You know, with him, I really would rather not mention his name. No, and I want to just say something, because people might misconstrue something you say. When you refer to blacks, you're probably referring to blacks who are professional black militants, because I know that you have respect for blacks who are good people and who love their country.
Yes, but let them start speaking out.
Well, that's why I had Mr. McLittle here the other day.
Yeah, well, he's considered an Uncle Tom by most of them, unfortunately.
Well, but I think that we'd be doing ourselves a disservice to forget that there are blacks, and then there are professional black militant, America-hating blacks. And I think that, for example, I wouldn't characterize Abby Hoffman as a white.
No.
Because he was a low-life maggot. And I believe there are many blacks, such as the man I'm going to interview later, Rudolph Monroe, who love this country and its traditions and who fight these gangs. And I just don't, I don't want to do an injustice to innocent people. And I know you don't either.
Well, as a matter of fact, Jay, I was going to criticize a white panderer who has been calling you, talking about how blacks are oppressed in America. Are these the same blacks who are on WLIB and WBAI every day telling us about their great accomplishments in racist America? There are over 300 black millionaires on strike right now in this oppressive country. The blacks are always telling us if they were a separate nation, they'd be the...
John, I've got to go. On WABC.
Right.
Be honest. Or you could be wearing some other necktie, but if it happens to be a If it happens to be a facsimile of a gang colors, you could find yourself on the receiving end of a shootout. I mean, some gang might have innocently chosen the Argyle and Sutherland colors to be their gang flags. So when they fly their flags, their colors, you walk down the street with an Argyle and Sutherland necktie you just got from JPress, you could find yourself out on the golf course in the middle of a shootout between the Latin Kings and the Gangster Disciple Nation. I could just see it now. You're up in Greenwich or the Ox Ridge Hunt Club or Baltusrol. Oh, well, pardon me. I'm here for my golf date. It was a 5 p.m. out on the first tee. Oh, my. Why are these individuals shooting at me? Who sponsored you for membership, young man? Are you in the hip-hop Haitian posse? Oh, my. Why are you pointing to my necktie? It's old heterotonians. Old heterotonians. You say you don't know old heterotonians? Well, you say those are your gang colors? You're flying your flag. I don't know anything about any flags other than the American flag and the Rye Country Day School flag. I see. Well, we'll settle this out on the 19th tee. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Mario Cuomo.
There is a place where life is good, where people live in harmony and nothing bad ever happens. A place where any hard-working couple can raise a family, walk the streets after dark, and all the cab drivers speak English. A place so perfect in every aspect, the activists had to go get real jobs. And if you should find it in your heart to re-elect me for just one more term, I promise, I'll bring you all there. Really, there's room for everyone. Trust me, it'll be grand, you'll see. And when you're there, you'll never want to leave because there are no taxes, and the buses all run on time, and everything is free. How do I know all of this? Because, ladies and gentlemen, it's where I got my start in life. It's the place of my birth, and it's my hometown. It's a mystical, magical place. A place called Queens. Somewhere over the river, in my dreams, there's a land that I hail from, a magical place called Queens. Somewhere over the river, there's no crime. Jails there stand ever empty, and criminals don't do time. Someday I'll wish upon a star and find the other candidates behind me, where tax funds wrote gentle bird, and no one ever really heard of George Hockey. Somewhere over the river, I'm not through searching for lowlife, riffraff, and outcasts to pander to. If Pressman kisses Sharpton's butt on Sunday mornings, why, oh, why can't I?
Time for you to go, Swachim.
Toto too?
Yes, Swachim. Toot-toot-toot.
I miss you all. Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye, 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 Mario, goodbye.
Okay.
Hi, Jay. Jay, I am really glad that you were one of the few that remember that it was not Bill Clinton's recovery. It was George Bush's recovery. That's the last thing he told us before he was forced to leave office, unfortunately. And maybe George Bush deserves a good crack for going along with the Democrats, not realizing that they would use this against him in the campaign and lied when they said they would cut back on spending. But after all, it was his recovery, just as he said. And yet there's a lot of people who still think that Bill Clinton is responsible for this. And you know, Jay, you notice how remember how they used to call Ronald Reagan the Teflon president? Bill Clinton has wriggled out of a whole series of scandals which would have destroyed everybody else's careers, One sex scandal was enough to force Gary Hart out of the presidential race in 1988. One burglary was enough to force Richard Nixon to resign. And in 1968, a couple of tears was enough to doom Ed Muskie's presidency. Clinton's draft dodging, his womanizing, and shady financial dealings put together haven't stopped him. And you know that now famous temper of Bill Clinton? Hell, Jay, I don't blame Bill Clinton for being mad. I mean, imagine if you're the president of the United States, your health care program is on life support and finally dies. The dollar was in free fall. Your staff was stealing towels and taking helicopter joyrides. 87 members of Congress were demanding the resignation of your top health care official. All 44 Republican senators are demanding that you disavow your party's intolerant remarks about Christian activists. Interest rates were going up for the 6th time since January. Inflation fears have economists worried. And your Supreme Court's nominee, Stephen Breyer's investments were under scrutiny. He put out his tin cup to pay for his legal defenses. Your Korean policy is dictated by Jimmy Carter. No one's denied a single charge. In Bob Woodward's book, the liberal New York Times accused the Clintons of a Whitewater cover-up. Voters don't know what the heck you believe in or what you're committed to, and neither do you. A decade of greed was now defined finally in 2 words: cattle futures.
And John, Haiti.
Yeah.
If nothing else existed, Haiti would be enough to dispose of this guy in 1996. This is a disgrace. Did you see the looting in Port-au-Prince?
Yeah.
Did you see those people crawling like flies on... Well, never mind. But sometimes if you walk on the street, some things are so covered with flies you can't see what they're covering. That's what this looks like in Haiti. These are the Democrats that we had to pay hundreds of millions of dollars to defend.
Yep, and they're all running from him, Jay. Nobody... Their party hasn't won a single major election since Bill Clinton took office.
I mean the Democrats in Haiti. This was their celebration.
Yeah.
The way they celebrated their return to democracy today was by looting and pillaging. Is that what we can expect?
Yeah, and they're shouting democracy and Aristide in the same breath.
Right.
Doesn't make sense.
Right. Thanks, John.
I'll talk to you.
Appreciate the call. Yeah.
Typical liberal hypocrite Kunstler. There's nobody who's more part of the establishment than a lawyer in America.
Well,
I wonder when he's sending all his big decadent American dollars to all those third world countries and, become homeless and do a liberal thing and hang around on the street.
John, I've said this. I've said this, and I'm sure you take it lightly, but calling William Kunstler a liberal is like calling a man-eating alligator in the Everglades a salamander.
Well, I thought it was well established that today's liberals are really far left.
Right.
Jay, I heard that interview with Congressman William Clay about a postage stamp being created for Richard Nixon. He was so upset about that. I'll bet he'd be all for a stamp for that racist anti-American Jesse Jackson or Malcolm X if they croaked. You know, he complained that Richard Nixon bombed Vietnam more in the last 3 months of the Vietnam War than in all of the years before. Well, I say good. That's a sign that he should get a stamp just for that, Richard Nixon. And Malcolm X he'd love a stamp for, too. You know, anyone who hates America. By the way, how come Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton were sweeping up in front of the 30th precinct? They should have been over at the Red Brook Housing Project cleaning up the mess that was created by their brothers in the community who destroyed that beautiful new soccer field that lasted only 11 days after $80,000 was donated to create a facility.
Did you see that picture in front of the 30th precinct?
Yeah.
They just love to gloat and make trouble. Unbelievable. Jesse Jackson and Sharpton were pouring water out of buckets, I guess spiritually cleansing the police station. They're upset. But here he is. Did you know that today is Al Sharpton's birthday?
Yeah, well, that's too bad. Well, I don't want to say it.
No, today's his birthday. He's 40 years old. He's 40 years old today, and he says, I'm reading from the Daily News here, John, he's 57 pounds lighter than he was last year.
Yeah.
Hey, I hope he's not ill.
Yeah, one thing's for sure, he's not any smarter. But you know, those 8 thugs who beat the off-duty cop, I do condemn them, Jay, and I noticed that they're all in jail. You know, they ran right after those white boys, and all of a sudden, a certain racist caller to this station was concerned about the police officer when he can make political hay against the white kids.
Well, let me tell you something. I'm glad you reminded me of that case. I will tell you something. Emotionally, they murdered that cop.
Yeah.
They did to him what those beasts did to the jogger. They did enough to kill that cop.
They should be...
And in my view, I would execute all of that street trash. I'd dig a big hole. I'd line him up next to it. I'd throw a little gasoline on him, and then I'd light a big bonfire and throw him in and cover him up.
Well, you know, Jay, I believe that anybody who commits a crime with a gun or any kind of weapon that's capable of killing someone, whether they use it or not, should be executed. Because just because they didn't use the weapon doesn't mean that they didn't intend to if somebody attempted to stop them.
I mean, 8 against 1. And what was the guy's crime? He came out and fired him in a nice way to shut up. He should have shot him from his window.
Oh, I would have cheered. They should have thrown a parade. And speaking
There's a lot of street trash, though. They have all those nightclubs in Bay Ridge now, and it attracts this street trash, this low form of humanity, subhumanity. And I've been there, and I see the kind of individuals that hang out. A lot of people hang out there late at night after they flunk the test for bartender.
Yeah.
That's the kind of kids those are. There was nothing lower. 8 to 1 to kick. You know what they did? Do you know when the police came and saw Detective Costantino lying there, they assumed, because of how he looked, that he'd been shot in the face?
Incredible.
That's what the officer said. We thought he had been shot in the face.
Yeah, but wait.
Those guys these guys are torturers. They kicked him and stopped for what? Because he had the temerity to ask them to quiet down at 5:30 in the morning?
No, you're not supposed to do that today. You're infringing on our rights. But the thing is, Jay, the other part of the point that I was going to make about this, if the 8 who beat him up, that beat that cop up, were blacks, this same caller...
Well, what are you worried about?
Useless for them.
You have happened to have a fixation about this guy.
No, wait, there's something...
As though he's the most important... he is nothing.
This is all liberal.
Nothing. He's nothing. That caller is he's nothing. He's in the ground. He's an inchworm.
Yeah,
in fact, that's the name for him, inchworm.
The other lefties were upset that about the amount of money that was spent for the Nixon funeral.
Yeah, but I want to get to the Nixon funeral, but as long as you persist in raising the issue about that other caller, why don't you imitate him to me?
No.
Come on, you see?
I got too many points to get to here.
I don't want to use you.
Stop it.
I don't want to. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm using him. Are you listening? And he's not from Queens, he's from Brooklyn.
You damn fool. That's a bald-faced laugh. But anyway, there was some people are so upset at the $311,000 that was spent for Richard Nixon's funeral. These same...
Yeah, how much should we spend on Mandela's parade?
Exactly, and Kiko Garcia's funeral. That was all right.
Yeah.
And, I love what these lefties think is great legislation. The motor voter bill, which is designed just to get the lowest amongst us who depend on Democrats, who love to use people who are the lowest of the low and depend on government and are parasites, get them voted to vote for these people who depend on them to keep them in office, and the family leave bill. Now, this was just another politically correct Hillary Clinton women's lib boondoggle that has cost American business billions of dollars. And the Brady bill, which is just more symbolism. It's not going to stop one doggone murder. And Bill Clinton is still trying to discredit trickle-down economics, Jay. Trickle-down economics, Jay, is nothing less than capitalism. When you and I get our check, we go out and we buy what we need from others. Then that person takes our money and goes and buys the things that he needs. That's trickle-down economics. And that happens to be the economic system all over the world that most people are now trying to change to. And the liberals on the left and the black haters constantly and desperately try to discredit policies that are good for America because they hate America. How could anyone, Jay, have an argument?
See, but when you say black haters, people are going to get aroused because they think you mean every black is a hater. And I know you don't. I know you don't. That's why it's good to be precise. Hello?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to wait till you finish, but,
You mean those specific blacks who pursue an anti-American agenda, but I want to make clear that I know you don't mean all blacks.
I know, of course, I think that's, that's pretty well established, but...
Well, there's always troublemakers out there looking...
Well, of course, they'll put trouble into anything they want to create trouble about, you know that, but, no, they're against anything that brings the country up as a whole. You know the old saying, Jay, all ships rise with an incoming tide?
Yeah.
How could anyone have an argument against standards that require people to perform and bring the country up as a whole? Only those who could be anti-American, and that's the left.
They are anti-American and, in more cases, anti-human. Thank you.
One other thing, very quick. Mike Espy. More black, white-collar crime. These are the people who say, if you give us a chance, things will be different. We'll show you. No, the attitude of a lot of blacks who make it in this country now is not that America has righted its wrongs, but now it's our turn. We're going to get ours.
John, I can't reach through the radio and pull the mask off, but every now and then one falls off.
I'll call you back.
Okay.
Thank you.
Off to Mike Thompson at Shadows 4. Calls Mr. Bill. Mr. President, Senator Kennedy on line 2.
Oh, good morning, Teddy. Good morning. How's the campaign going?
Not too good, Bill. I thought maybe you could help me out a little bit.
Well, how may I be of service, Teddy?
I don't know, Mr. President. I've tried every trick in the book, made every promise I could think of, and pandered to every lowlife from one end of the state to the other, but I'm still losing in the polls.
Have you tried hiding behind a group of children? That's always worked well for me and HIlly.
Yes, sir. As a matter of fact, I did just that. This afternoon, I appeared at some daycare center in Boston.
Well, how did it go?
Everything seemed to be going rather well. I read the little tykes an excerpt from Heather Has Two Mommies. Then I sang an old nursery song that my nanny sang to me, the Itsy Bitsy Spider, and that's when the trouble began.
I wouldn't be too concerned, Teddy. What happened? Forget the words or something?
No, I remember the words just fine. That was splendid. But when I squatted down to get closer to the lads, one of the little bastards decided it might be fun to play connect the dots with the liver spots on my forehead. You know that if you connect the dots on my forehead, it spells 999.
Oh, my, that's very embarrassing. That's almost as bad as when I had Jennifer Flowers connect the dots on... Oh, never mind.
Don't I know it. It is embarrassing. I look like Squeaky Fromm or some kind of pervert or something.
Well, Teddy, it could have been a lot worse.
I'm not finished yet. After I turned to face the audience, a little boy in the front row stood up and began to scream, "That's the man, Daddy. That's the man who hurt me." I was forced to dive in the swimming pool in order to avoid a major confrontation.
Hey, it's a good thing you know how to swim, Teddy.
You can say that again.
Okay, it's a good thing you know how to swim. Let me ask you, Teddy, what have you done for the feminists?
You mean lately? I've done plenty. For instance, I've just instituted legislation providing for mandatory abortions regardless of sexual orientation. I've also sponsored a bill mandating November as National PMS Awareness Month, and yesterday I even went the extra mile by sending Eleanor Clift a note of appreciation for her objective book review of Standing Firm. I even went so far as complimenting her on those sensible shoes she wears on McLaughlin.
I don't see how a man could do more than that, Teddy.
Oh, I don't know about that. I just got a call today from that crazy Bella Abzug. She said if I expect to get her endorsement, I'll have to agree to change the name of the Commonwealth to Ms. Massachusetts.
Oh, my heavens, she can't be serious. Does she really mean that?
As serious as drowning in a submerged automobile. She says Jesse Jackson told her the name Massachusetts has some sort of subliminal racist overtone.
Well, don't get too discouraged, Teddy. I know the polls show a close race between you and Romney, but you're forgetting those opinion people only interview the living.
Well, that's all right. I forgot all about that. The graveyard vote. Why, some of my most ardent supporters are dead. And besides, we're hitting him very hard with that Moroni stuff. You know, he is a Mormon, don't you?
I don't know. I thought he looked like a mafioso.
No, that's someone else. In any event, I can tell you that, as I said, most of my most ardent supporters are, in fact, the unliving.
Well, mine too, mostly from self-inflicted gunshot wounds, though. Look, Teddy, I know you're in a bit of a bind with the voters this year. What do you say I run up to Massachusetts this weekend and do a little stumping for you? Hello, Teddy? Hello? Hello? All right, on WABC, this is Jay Diamond.
Hi, Jay.
Hello, John.
Jay, there was nothing amusing about that caller who you were speaking to Ronald Reagan about. He was an obnoxious, two-bit little worm. And it doesn't make any difference when Ronald Reagan switched parties. The fact is, as he got older, as most people get older, they realized that the Democratic Party is nothing but a bunch of ultra-left-wing Marxists.
No, but John, he was wrong.
Well, he may have been, but he's insisting that he was right.
Because he's just nuts. But Ronald Reagan was elected governor as a Republican with Ed Meese as his California State Attorney General. And in '68, there was a groundswell at the Republican convention for Ronald Reagan, and he had, in fact, made the nominating speech for Barry Goldwater back in 1964. So it's just absurd. He was a Democrat, but back in 1950, he changed to a Republican.
No, but the more important thing, the more important thing, Jay, is why he switched, and that's the important thing. It doesn't make any difference when he switched. He was smart enough to switch, and bravo to that caller who set the record straight about the salaries for the 18 million jobs that were created in the 1980s by Presidents Reagan and Bush. According to the 1990 census, Jay, the average starting salary for jobs created in the 1980s was $10.20 an hour, far beyond the so-called attempt at belittling the jobs that were created by calling them hamburger flipping jobs. And for that no facts, F-A-C-T-S, name-calling racist dog, HIlly, who referred to Ronald Reagan as that sleeping president, I might remind him that his two left-wing heroes, Al Gore and Hillary, that witch, were caught on camera falling asleep during that all-important economic conference that Bill Clinton had a couple of months into his non-administration. Were they going senile? They wish they had the brain and the rubber Ronald Reagan. And that female member of the March of the Racists, Juanita, had the nerve to say, no one is talking about the beating of the transit cop by those white thug bullies. Well, Jay, everyone... Oh, she also said everyone's making excuses for them?
I don't know. This wasn't on my show. So my preference would be if you talk about issues to me, John. And that's what the station wants us all to do.
Well, I've just seen the opposite. That's what I'm saying. When it comes to black attacks on white, stories are always buried about black racist attacks on white. We heard excuses made for black looting in the 1977 blackouts. It was because they were poor. 3 days later, the police report showed that 84% of the Central Park jogger rapists were called good boys and were strongly supported by racist blacks, including the Amsterdam News and Bill Tatum, who blamed it on the boyfriend. David Dinkins said Yankel Rosenbaum was killed because of a lack of jobs and services. And how many times have we heard racist blacks say Yankel's death was the fault of the hospital? How many times have we heard poverty blamed for black transgressions? Now, it's ridiculous, Jay. When a black politician turns out to be a disaster or a crook, he was set up to fail.
Okay.
So to all of them, Jay, I have one thing to say. Thank you.
Okay. John from Staten Island, every man's friend, and hello, John. Last night, Greg, when the final hour of the show was devoted to the sex survey.
Gracious.
Then I guess you thought I didn't say anything about it. Look at that. You're only 24 hours late. Ha!
Better late than never, Jim.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Just kidding. So what's up with...
And we're tolerant of everybody. The more weird they are, the better. Please wear earrings. Please have purple hair. Please wear a ring through your nose. Please have tattoos over 99% of your body so I can show you respect because I'm so tolerant. Nothing offends me, no matter how disgusting and slovenly it is.
Well, they have the Gay Expo now. We just had the Gay Olympics about 10 weeks ago. Then we have the Gay Parade every June. And guess what? In only about 3 weeks, we'll have the Gay Halloween Parade. Those are 4 events that are all gay events. Now, that dumb Halloween parade I'd like to see a big crop duster. Just dust them with, I don't know, with some, maybe, fairy dust.
Jay, Hilly is right. Malcolm X and Louis Farrakhan and other black racists are respected by most of the black community because they're all racist and birds of a feather, you know. He talks about when we had people going to our schools here in New York on an open policy. Yeah, that's when we had a decent generation of students, not the new revolutionary scum. And he talks about student loans. Yeah, if I was a school, I wouldn't, or the government, I wouldn't give one student today a loan. Half of them don't pay it back, and they're not to be trusted. Hilly says, the black community. Is he saying that the black community is monolithic? He's stereotyping blacks, that racist. And for his information, Jay, the liberals that he's always talking about, who love government, like Bill Clinton, you hear the latest economic statistics? The number of Americans with a cash income below the government official poverty line rose from 14.8% in 1992 to 15.1% last year. This was the highest level since 1983 when it was 15.2%.
Yeah, but that includes gangs.
Yeah. Well, that was but in 1983...
Under my administration, more gangs have more cash in their pockets.
But in 83, though, we were coming out of a recession, and the numbers started to go way down under Ronald Reagan. The median household income fell for the 4th year in a row. And the number of Americans, Jay, are at the poverty level are a record high now. And since this administration is claiming their economic programs have worked and complain that they're not getting any credit for it, will Bill Clinton take credit for the poor getting poorer? No, he'll blame Ronald Reagan and George Bush. Will the liberals and the left say the poor are getting poorer while the rich and middle class continue to do well thanks to Clintonomics? And if only the wealthy, Jay, were affected by Clinton's tax increases, then why haven't the poor and the middle class done better in this recovery? Bill Clinton isn't getting any credit for a so-called recovery, Jay, because people don't feel that they're better off. And these statistics prove it. The Clinton economic policy so far has given us a record number of Americans living in poverty outside a recession or a depression. And they want credit for a disaster. And as a side note, I wonder why Hilly didn't mention that black guy who's riding around Manhattan stabbing only white people with a knife.
No, I didn't.
He rides on a bicycle.
When is this? I didn't even hear
it.
it.
It was on the news today.
There is a guy in
one white guy in the chest.
Where was that?
He's riding around Manhattan so far, but I have a...
Yeah, well, what neighborhood, for heaven's sake?
I don't know.
I want to watch out for him.
I only heard one report of it. But we heard plenty about the 8 or 9 who beat up the police officer, didn't we?
You know, but don't go yet. I don't want you to do your thank you and then escape, because November 19th is the...
No, I want to say something about Bill Clinton.
All right, but then don't go. Don't do a thank you and hang up.
Okay.
All right, go ahead.
I love the bottom of the barrel accusation, Jay, of Clinton supporters who continuously whine that the Republicans and the right-wingers oppose all the legislation of this administration just because it's Bill Clinton. First of all, Jay, more Democrats have opposed Bill Clinton half the time than Republicans. In fact, the Republicans have saved him a couple of times. And if the Republicans were just out to oppose Bill Clinton no matter what, then how come a number of Republicans changed their initial vote on the crime bill from no to yes? Bill Clinton is the cause of his opposition because 98%, if not all of his legislation is god-awful, And his appointments amount to left-wing revolution in this country, where most people love capitalism and they're conservative. It's not an accident that 60% of the American people disapprove of this guy. But of course, in their arrogance, the liberals will tell you that those people are uninformed and need to be educated.
All right, now, November 19th is the listener party at the Aman Duran Restaurant and Pub, the J. Diamond Listener Party.
Yeah.
And you are going to be there.
Yeah, I'll be there.
All right, there you hear it, ladies and gentlemen. John from Staten Island, in person.
Take notes.
Trouble is, no one will want to see me now.
Oh, stop. Get out of
Well, it's true. Everybody, when I talk, they grab me in the street. Hey, you really going to have that listener? I said, yeah. They say, is John from Staten Island going to be there? Is John from... So I say, hey, look, maybe I should stay home, and we'll just have the John from Staten Island listener party. And by the way,
we're forging ahead.
He's not from Queens, he's from Brooklyn. Thank you. Good night.
Just make sure you bring a bulletproof vest. They may want to get me.
No, I'm wearing the sign that says he's John. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks.
And WABC. Why he's calling. Hey, I'd hate to find out why he's calling.
Well, what I'd like to say...
Allusions to somebody's physical appearance. But I have to tell you something. I honestly believe that how a person comports himself, how a person shows himself to the world, means a lot in analyzing that person's personality, in what makes him tick psychologically. And I have no respect for any Iraqi. I'm sorry to tell you that. Why? Because they all wear the same store-bought mustache. That stupid, phony, paste-on mustache that he has looks so stupid. And they all have the same one, that big, huge, thick, Kurt Vonnegut-type mustache that every Iraqi on TV sports. It's laughable. And I'm tired of Saddam's little paunchy stomach, soft and flabby. He's anything but the image of a stalwart military leader. He just walks around with that slumpy posture with the stomach that looks like a bag of cats going to the river. Altogether an unimpressive man, but he has one thing behind him. One thing behind him. He's got a few Republican Guard troops left that we stupidly left there.